Have you ever wondered how one man transformed a small regional wrestling company into a global entertainment empire worth billions of dollars? A man who took unimaginable risks, broke every rule in the industry, defeated powerful competitors, created some of the biggest superstars in history, and forever changed what professional wrestling could become. To millions of fans around the world, WWE is more than just a wrestling company. It's a cultural phenomenon. But behind every championship, every WrestleMania, and every unforgettable moment stands one controversial figure whose vision reshaped sports entertainment forever. This is the incredible story of how Vince McMahon built WWE into an empire that changed wrestling forever. Welcome back to Ring Insights, where we uncover the greatest stories in professional wrestling history. If you love deep documentaries, legendary rivalries, championship histories, and the untold stories behind WWE's biggest moments, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating success stories in entertainment history. The rise of Vince McMahon and the creation of the WWE empire. Long before WWE became a worldwide brand, professional wrestling looked completely different. During the 1970s and early 1980s, wrestling in America wasn't controlled by one giant company. Instead, it was divided into territories. Each region had its own wrestling promotion, its own television audience, and its own stars. Promotions respected each other's boundaries because they were all connected through the National Wrestling Alliance, better known as the NWA. It was an unwritten rule that no promoter should invade another promoter's territory. Most people believed that system would last forever. But one man had a completely different vision. Vincent Kennedy McMahon was born on August 24, 1945. His childhood was far from glamorous. Unlike many people imagine today, Vince didn't grow up surrounded by wrestling rings and television cameras. He spent much of his early life away from his father, Vince McMahon Sr., who was already involved in the wrestling business. Instead, Vince faced a difficult upbringing, moving between different homes and dealing with financial struggles. Those early years shaped his personality. He learned to become incredibly competitive and developed an obsession with proving people wrong. Challenges didn't scare him, they motivated him. When Vince eventually met his father and entered the wrestling business, he started at the bottom. He wasn't immediately running shows or making major business decisions. Instead, he worked behind the scenes and later became a television commentator. Fans heard his voice every week, but few realized that the young announcer sitting behind the microphone had dreams far bigger than anyone could imagine. While working alongside his father, Vince carefully studied every part of the business. He watched how events were promoted, how television deals were negotiated, and how wrestlers connected with audiences. More importantly, he noticed something that others ignored. Professional wrestling had enormous potential. His father saw wrestling as a regional attraction. Vince saw global entertainment. That difference would eventually change everything. By the early 1980s, Vince believed the traditional territory system was holding wrestling back. Local promotions were making money, but they weren't thinking big enough. Television technology was improving, cable networks were expanding across America, and millions of new viewers were becoming available. To Vince, this wasn't just another business opportunity, it was the opportunity. In 1982, Vince McMahon made the boldest decision of his life. He purchased the World Wrestling Federation from his father. Buying the company was risky enough, but the real gamble came afterward. According to many stories from people around the business, Vince reportedly promised to pay for the company over time using its future earnings. If the company failed, he wouldn't simply lose his investment, he could lose everything. Many veteran promoters believed the young McMahon was making a terrible mistake. They thought he lacked experience. They believed he was too ambitious. Most importantly, they believed nobody could successfully expand wrestling nationwide. But Vince didn't care what they thought. Almost immediately after taking control, he began doing something considered almost unthinkable. He started promoting shows in territories that belonged to other wrestling companies. To longtime promoters, this was an act of war. One by one, Vince entered cities that had been controlled by rival promotions for decades. Instead of respecting old agreements, he offered bigger arenas, stronger television exposure, and larger opportunities for wrestlers willing to join him. Many wrestling promoters were furious. Some thought Vince would destroy the wrestling business. Others believed his company would collapse within a few years. Instead, the exact opposite happened. One of Vince's greatest strengths was recognizing talent that could become larger than life. He didn't just want good wrestlers. He wanted unforgettable superstars. He understood something few promoters truly appreciated. People don't simply pay to watch wrestling matches. They pay to watch personalities. Characters, heroes, villains, icons. This philosophy became the foundation of everything WWE would later become. Instead of presenting wrestling as a legitimate sporting contest like many promotions did, Vince focused on entertainment. Bigger entrances, louder music, more dramatic storytelling, colorful costumes, memorable catchphrases, larger-than-life characters that fans could instantly recognize. It was a revolutionary approach. Some traditional wrestling fans criticized it. Others called it too flashy, but new audiences loved it. Television ratings started growing. Merchandise sales increased. Attendance climbed. For the first time, wrestling wasn't just attracting hardcore fans. Families were watching together. Children had favorite superstars. Mainstream media began paying attention. Vince also realized that television would become his greatest weapon. While many promoters treated TV as simple advertising for live events, Vince saw television as the product itself. Every broadcast had to make fans emotionally invested enough to tune in again the following week. That strategy transformed WWE programming. Storylines became longer, characters became deeper, rivalries became more personal. Every episode left fans wanting more. The formula worked, but Vince knew he still needed one face who could represent the future of his company. Someone charismatic, someone believable, someone who could become the symbol of an entirely new era. He found that man in a superstar who would soon become one of the biggest names in wrestling history. His name was Hulk Hogan. When Hogan returned to Vince McMahon's company in late 1983 after gaining popularity elsewhere, Vince immediately recognized something special. Hogan wasn't just another wrestler with impressive muscles. He had unmatched charisma, incredible confidence, and a natural ability to connect with audiences of every age. Children wanted to be him. Parents admired him. Fans erupted every time his music hit. Vince saw more than a champion. He saw the face of a global brand. That decision would soon change professional wrestling forever. And with Hulk Hogan leading the charge, Vince McMahon was preparing to launch an event so ambitious that many people believed it would bankrupt his company. Instead, it would become the greatest spectacle in wrestling history. As Hulk Hogan's popularity exploded, Vince McMahon knew the time had come to attempt something no wrestling promoter had ever dared to do. He wasn't interested in simply putting on another wrestling show. He wanted to create an event so massive that even people who had never watched professional wrestling would have no choice but to pay attention. The idea sounded almost impossible. A wrestling super show broadcast across the United States featuring celebrities, music, mainstream media coverage, and the biggest stars the company could find. Most people thought Vince had finally gone too far. Industry veterans warned him that the financial risk was enormous. If the event failed, the company might never recover. Millions of dollars were being invested into production, marketing, satellite distribution, and promotion. At the time, nothing on that scale had ever been attempted in professional wrestling. Friends questioned his decision. Competitors laughed at his ambition. Some promoters were secretly hoping he would fail. But Vince believed that fortune favored those willing to take risks. On March 31st, 1985, WrestleMania was born. The event wasn't just another wrestling pay-per-view. It was marketed like the Super Bowl of sports entertainment. Celebrities such as Mr. T, Cyndi Lauper, Muhammad Ali, and Liberace helped bring mainstream attention to wrestling in ways nobody had imagined before. Suddenly, newspapers, television stations, and entertainment magazines were talking about WWE. The main event featured Hulk Hogan teaming with Mr. T against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. When the night ended, Vince McMahon had proven everyone wrong. WrestleMania was a massive success. Instead of destroying the company, it became the foundation of an empire. From that moment forward, WrestleMania wasn't simply an annual wrestling event. It became a global tradition. Every year, fans waited to see what impossible dream Vince would turn into reality. With WrestleMania becoming an instant success, WWE's popularity skyrocketed. Merchandise sales exploded. Action figures filled toy stores. T-shirts became fashion statements. Television ratings continued to climb, and arenas across America sold out night after night. For the first time, wrestling wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Vince understood something that many entertainment companies still struggle with today. A successful business isn't built around one product, it's built around a brand. Every superstar became part of that brand. Every championship mattered. Every entrance was carefully designed. Every logo, theme song, and storyline helped create a larger universe that fans wanted to be part of. Children didn't just watch WWE, they collected it, they wore it, they lived it. As WWE expanded, Vince also revolutionized how wrestlers were presented. Instead of using ordinary names and simple personalities, he encouraged performers to become unforgettable characters. The Ultimate Warrior wasn't just powerful, he felt mythical. Macho Man Randy Savage wasn't just athletic, he was unpredictable and larger than life. Andre the Giant wasn't simply tall. He was presented as an unstoppable attraction unlike anything fans had ever witnessed. Each superstar felt unique. Each had a purpose. Each gave fans another reason to tune in. The storytelling became bigger every year. Heroes battled impossible odds. Villains cheated their way to championships. Friendships collapsed. Alliances were formed. Every rivalry felt like a movie unfolding week after week. Fans became emotionally invested. They celebrated victories. They hated villains. They debated storylines at school, at work, and around dinner tables. Professional wrestling had become part of popular culture. By the late 1980s, Vince McMahon wasn't just competing against other wrestling companies anymore. He was competing with every form of entertainment. Movies, television, sports, concerts. His goal was simple. Whenever people thought about entertainment, WWE should be one of the first names that came to mind. That mindset pushed the company to constantly innovate. Production quality improved every year. Entrance stages became larger, pyrotechnics became more spectacular, camera work became more cinematic, commentary became faster and more dramatic. Everything about WWE was designed to feel bigger than life. Meanwhile, Vince continued making aggressive business moves. He expanded television partnerships, strengthened merchandising, secured licensing deals, and invested heavily in international markets. Countries outside the United States were beginning to discover WWE. Fans in Canada, the United Kingdom, Europe, Asia, and later many other parts of the world started following the company's biggest stars. Professional wrestling was no longer regional. It was becoming global, but success always attracts competition. As WWE entered the 1990s, another powerful force was preparing to challenge Vince McMahon's growing empire. That company was World Championship Wrestling. Backed by media billionaire Ted Turner, WCW had something many believed Vince could never compete against: unlimited financial resources. Turner loved wrestling and wanted WCW to defeat WWE at all costs. For the first time in years, Vince found himself facing an opponent with enough money to sign away his biggest stars. And that's exactly what began happening. Some of WWE's most recognizable names accepted massive contracts to leave for WCW. One after another, familiar faces disappeared from WWE television. Fans wondered if Vince's empire was finally beginning to crumble. The pressure became even greater in 1995 when WCW launched Monday Nitro. The show aired live on Monday nights, directly against WWE's Monday Night Raw. This wasn't just another rivalry. It became a weekly battle for television ratings. Every Monday, both companies fought for viewers. Every week, one company celebrated while the other searched for answers. For nearly 2 years, WCW dominated the ratings. Their shocking storylines and the arrival of the New World Order featuring Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall completely changed wrestling. Millions of fans switched channels. Industry experts predicted WWE's downfall. Some believed Vince McMahon had finally met an opponent he couldn't defeat. Inside WWE headquarters, morale was low, business declined, attendance dropped, profits shrank. The company faced one of the darkest periods in its history. Many businesses would have accepted defeat. Many owners would have played it safe, but Vince McMahon had never built his career by playing it safe. Instead of giving up, he prepared for the biggest reinvention of WWE the world had ever seen. A new generation of stars was waiting in the wings, a generation that would change wrestling forever. And at the center of that revolution stood one rebellious superstar whose attitude matched the changing culture of an entire generation. His name was Stone Cold Steve Austin.